You're a parent or caregiver of a toddler, trying to keep track of every single little milestone can honestly feel pretty overwhelming. So today, we're taking some expert clinical insights from pediatric occupational therapy and turning them into a super practical, empowering at-home checklist just for you. We're going to focus on identifying those really subtle developmental signs in toddlers right around that 18-month to 2.5-year mark. These are the little things that most parents and honestly, even some health professionals can easily miss. But by understanding exactly what to look for, you'll be beautifully equipped to support your child's journey.
Look, if you've ever found yourself Googling late at night or kind of second-guessing your little one's quirks, asking yourself, is my toddler developing typically? I want to completely validate those anxieties right now. It is absolutely normal to wonder. But let's clarify something incredibly important right out of the gate. Observing these subtle signs is entirely about building your own awareness. It is absolutely not about making a diagnosis at home. We're simply putting on our observation glasses to see how they naturally interact with their environment.
Before we go any further, I want you to take a deep breath and just remember this. Seeing one or even a few of these signs doesn't mean they have autism. So please, don't stress. I literally cannot say that emphatically enough. The whole goal of this explainer is simply to help you observe natural, everyday behaviors. If you do happen to notice a few of the things we covered today, your only job is to just jot down some notes to share with your pediatrician at your next visit. They are the experts who will help figure out if any next steps are needed. So, grab a pen, get comfortable, and let's jump in. Okay, let's dive into this checklist. We're going to tackle 4 main areas: directed communication, shared world and gestures, play and imitation, and physical movements. Starting with Category 1, directed communication. This covers eye contact, responding to their name and language. So, by about 18 months, your child should be using eye contact constantly to connect with you. You know, whether that's showing you pure, unadulterated joy over a new toy, or giving you a look of complete disgust when you try to sneak in some mushy peas. To check on this, try what we call the car test. Next time you're on the floor playing with a favorite ball or a toy car, push it back and forth a few times. Then, when it's your turn to push it back, just stop. Do nothing. What you want to see is the child looking at the toy for a second and then looking right up at your face. It's like they're using their eyes to say, "Hey, why'd you stop? Push it again." If they just get upset that the game stopped and stare blankly at the toy without looking up at you for help, that's a subtle sign you'll want to note down.
Another really crucial observation is the name test. Wait until they're playing and just use a nice, calm voice to call their name. Then wait 7 to 10 seconds. And yes, I know 10 seconds feels like an absolute eternity in toddler time. If they don't respond, try again. Still nothing? Try a third time. Now, we all know toddlers get wonderfully absorbed in whatever they're doing, so they might not look up instantly on try number 1. But they should definitely pause and look your way by the second or third call. If you notice they consistently ignore their name after 3 tries, day in and day out, the very first step is actually just getting their hearing checked. But if their hearing is totally fine and they still aren't responding, that's our next sign to observe.
Now, keeping track of spoken language milestones gives us some fantastic clues. By 18 months, we generally want to see them using 3 or more words spontaneously, meaning they aren't just echoing you and following simple one-step directions, like "bring me your cup," without you having to point to it. Fast forward to 2 years, and we're looking for 20 to 50 words, plus those early 2-word combos like "more apple." But listen, beyond just counting words, pay attention to the flow. Even if they're just babbling complete nonsense to you, it should sound like a real conversation. Their tone should go up and down, almost like they're asking questions or telling a dramatic story, and they should actually pause to let you answer. If it doesn't have that conversational rhythm, jot it down.
Moving right along to Category 2, shared world and gestures. We'll be looking at pointing, waving, and how they share joy.
This one is all about how your toddler physically interacts with the space around them, and more importantly, how they invite you into their world. Take pointing, for example. Typical pointing isn't just stretching an arm out at a toy. It's about them looking back at you to check if you're paying attention. It's their way of asking, "Do you see what I see?" The delayed behavior we look out for is when a child looks at a toy, walks toward it, or even points to it, but never actually checks to see if you're watching. They're missing that really crucial element of sharing their interest with you.
And pointing is just one piece of the puzzle here. There's a whole list of everyday gestures you should be seeing pretty regularly. Holding their arms up to be picked up, waving hello or goodbye, clapping when a fun song comes on, shaking their head yes or no, putting a hand out to say stop, or motioning for you to come over. These are their absolute fundamental communication tools right now. So if you feel like you are constantly having to remind them, like you're always saying, "wave bye-bye," or "clap your hands," because they rarely do it on their own,
That is a really vital sign to put on your checklist.
It's also super important that they understand your gestures. Try this quick little test at home. Point across the room at a dog outside, or maybe a cool toy, and say, "Wow, look at that." A typical response is the toddler following your point and looking at the actual object. They shouldn't just be staring at your outstretched hand. You can also just watch how they react to you naturally throughout the day. When you wave, do they wave back? When you smile, do you get a smile? When you open your arms wide, do they come running for a hug? If they aren't responding to those kinds of natural social invitations, make a note of it.
This brilliantly illustrates the vital difference between a child sharing pure joy and a child simply asking you to do something for them. Say they find a really cool bug outside. Ideally, they'll bring it over, hold it right up to your face, and make eye contact, like, "Whoa, look at this amazing thing." That is sharing joy. Contrast that with them dropping a broken toy in your lap to be fixed and immediately walking away without even looking at you. In that second scenario, they aren't trying to share an emotional moment, they just need you to be a tool to perform a task. If they rarely share that pure, bubbly excitement with you, it's definitely a subtle sign to be aware of.
Category 3, play and imitation. We're focusing on pretending and copying here.
Up until they're about 18 months old, play is mostly just exploration, right? Banging blocks together, pushing buttons, putting literally everything in their mouths. But between 18 months and 2 years, there's this massive developmental shift into pretend play. A doll isn't just plastic anymore. She's hungry and needs a bottle. Cars aren't just blocks on wheels. They need you to make vroom vroom noises as they speed around the living room. The opposite of this is very literal repetitive play. That looks like taking a toy car and just spinning the wheels over and over, or aligning up toys in perfect endless rows without any kind of imaginative story attached. If your child's play leans heavily into that literal style and skips those fun pretend scenarios, that's a great milestone to bring up with your doctor.
Then we have the imitation sign. I absolutely love calling this the little shadow phase. By 2 years old, your kiddo should ideally want to copy pretty much everything you do. You grab a hairbrush, they want a hairbrush. You wipe the counter, they need a towel. You clap, they clap. Now, I know having a tiny shadow following your every move can be incredibly exhausting, especially when you're just trying to get out the door. But here's why it matters so much. This copying is actually the primary way they master life skills and learn to engage with humans. If they just quietly watch you from afar without ever trying to join in or copy your actions, that's sign number 9 on our checklist.
And finally, Category 4, physical movements. We're distinguishing between normal toddler quirks and stimming behaviors.
Toddlers are naturally super quirky, and they love to move their bodies. But here, we want to draw a line between a typical, everyday quirk and what professionals call stimming, or self-stimulating behaviors. When we look at physical movements, we're watching for common stims. That could be them flaring or waving their fingers right in front of their eyes to watch the light flicker. It might be hand flapping down at their sides, or shaking their head back and forth, not to say no, but just because the motion feels calming or exciting. You might also see whole body rocking, spinning in circles, or walking up on their tiptoes most of the day. For some children, these repetitive movements are just how they uniquely process all the sensory input around them.
So how do you know if a movement is a subtle sign or just a funny phase? It all comes down to the time frame. It's totally normal for a toddler to experiment with a weird new movement like spinning or toe walking for a couple of days and then just get bored and stop completely. That's a classic quirk. But the vital distinction, the potential sign we're tracking, is if they are doing these repetitive movements every single day for weeks or even months, to the point where it becomes their absolute favorite way to play. If it persists long-term, put it on your observation list.
As we wrap up this checklist, I want to remind you of our guiding principle for today. Just jot down anything that feels familiar and bring it up at your little one's next appointment. That's it. That is the whole mission here. Having this framework is absolutely not a reason to panic. It's just a tool. It's meant to empower you to have informed, specific, and really productive conversations with your pediatrician. You are the expert when it comes to your child, and these structured observations just help you translate all those home behaviors into the language your doctor uses. So, as we finish up today, I want to leave you with a question. What subtle signs have you observed during playtime recently? I highly encourage you to take the structured categories we just went over, directed communication, sharing their world, play, and physical movements, and just watch your toddler tomorrow with a fresh, empowered perspective. The better we can observe these natural little behaviors, the better we can support our little ones as they grow and thrive. Thank you so much for joining me today, and happy observing!